Hello and welcome to another session at SFFCon 2021. We are here for the Beyond Earth Sci-Fi Space Adventure panel, and I am Amy Duboff, and I will be moderating. I am a space opera author. Some of my readers refer to me as the Queen of Space Opera, so this is probably an appropriate panel for me to be on, and I will have the other panelists introduce themselves. So Rachel, why don't we start with you?
All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Akis, and I write science fiction, horror, and a few other genres, but mostly science fiction, with all of my latest series being space adventures. So just launched the latest series, the Space Trooper series that does take place within our solar system. So looking forward to this panel.
And Josh?
Hi, Josh Hayes. I am the author of the Valor trilogy and co-author of the Terra Nova series with Richard Fox. We just launched another new series called Tranquility with Devin C. Ford this week. And yeah, I think it's going to be great. I love this topic. I love talking about this kind of stuff, so I'm excited to get into it.
Lisa?
Hi, I write under L.L. Richman. I've written 15 science fiction thrillers in 2 universes, 4 series altogether. And yeah, adventure. I'm all for adventure, so this can be fun.
And Rick?
I'm Rick Partlow. I've written somewhere over 40 novels, all of them
Ish.
Including the Drop Trooper series, Earth at War, Interstellar Bounty Hunter, Wholesale Slaughter, and they were all kind of half military science fiction and half space opera. So space adventure is kind of my specialty.
Sweet. So how do you define space adventure versus the other sci-fi subgenres?
It's pretty simple. Sorry, I was making a note so I wouldn't forget, because I had an idea that popped into my head. But I think for space adventure, first of all, you have to have some type of fantastic thing that is happening. You have to be out like really cool technologies, aliens, that kind of thing. But I guess you can kind of classify The Expanse as space adventure ish. But I look at, like, Babylon 5, Battlestar Galactica, like stuff that is, it's not centered around Earth. It's not centered around, maybe a planet. It's out there doing things, spaceships, that kind of thing. That's how I look at it.
And also, I think the adventure part of it, you have movies like, for instance, The Martian, or books like The Martian, where the main focus of the book is the science, the overcoming, technological obstacles. Whereas space adventure is more, your classic Indiana Jones style thing with chases and explosions and fights and running, that it just happens in space. So,
it's not very introspective. There's a lot of science fiction that's introspective and kind of like, you're just drawn through the story because of whatever. I think that space adventure is it's not campy, but it's close, right? Like it doesn't take itself too seriously. I think one of the greatest examples that I've read of space adventure, kind of space opera-ish, is Peter F. Hamilton's The Commonwealth saga. And it's so big and so crazy that it's a joy to read. I've read it several times. But like my favorite show is Battlestar Galactica and Babylon 5. I've watched those over and over and over again because I love what they do with the aliens, what they do with their tech, that kind of stuff. Just really, it's
kind of the difference between Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Star Wars.
Yeah,
Star Wars is space adventure. Close Encounters is not.
Right.
Yeah, and I think when you think of adventures, you think of things like what causes hikers to climb Mount Everest, or what causes someone to want to establish a base in Antarctica or something. And if you translate that to space, then you get Battlestar Galactica, or and it's things that usually there are adventurers. They go and they go on an adventure, as opposed to like a thriller where things can sometimes the adventure ends up finding the protagonist. Right. Maybe. So there might be a difference there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and to me, and this kind of disagrees a little bit with Josh in that it doesn't have to be absolutely epic, but I know you weren't saying that either.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be small. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my favorite series is Firefly, which is a ship,
100%.
one small ship, one small crew, but they're on a journey. And it's not an intrinsic journey like Martian and all those. It really is external, taking a journey somewhere and they're having a heyday doing it.
Although in Serenity, the movie, it kind of got more epic than it was in the
series.
series.
It did. Yes.
I actually saw the movie before I saw the series.
Oh.
Wow. I like the movie better, honestly. I mean, the series is great, but I love the movie.
Yeah, me too.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So what kind of, okay, oops, that's Amy's job. I was going to ask you a question.
I was going to say, so how far from Earth do you feel like the characters need to venture in order for it to be considered a real space adventure versus just a thing that happens to have a space element to it?
What is it, 24 miles?
Yeah, outside our orbit.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Like I said, The Expanse is really good space adventure. And again, like Rachel's saying, it's a small crew on a small ship, and you get other characters, and you get, geopolitical kind of stuff. But I just think as long as it's not landlocked, like in Star Trek, they're on a ship, but they go to different planets, right? I think that is like great. That's you go and you explore new landscapes and new places. I think that if even like Deep Space Nine, where they're like locked on a space station and they don't really go anywhere, but they still do go some places. I think the going and doing is, I think, the key element in space adventure.
Yeah, I'd argue that you'd at least have to be going to a different planet. Like, I don't know if I would count just between Earth to the moon,
Right.
but I would count between Earth
Armageddon?
and Mars.
What about Armageddon? Was that a space adventure?
No.
I don't
Not
think Armageddon
really.
is a space
I mean,
adventure.
that's a different thing. I really characterize it as like having some kind of interplanetary element to it, at least for myself.
Yeah. I would not classify Armageddon as space adventure. It's more just like a thriller that's in space.
Yeah.
It's kind
exactly like Gravity. I mean, like that. It's they're in space, but I wouldn't put it as
Gravity. I wouldn't call Gravity an adventure at all. But
an adventure in sleep. Yeah.
Well,
that's kind of like where people
get.
I think that's kind of like where people get hemmed up on mil sci-fi. Like some people like say that I'm writing mil sci-fi, but they're actually not writing mil sci-fi. They're writing sci-fi with military in it.
Right. That's what I do. Yeah.
Right.
I have thrillers that have military people, but that's not mil sci-fi.
Yeah. Because there's specific things you got to put into that genre to actually make it mil sci-fi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can't just throw a soldier on the crew.
Right.
For sure.
One of the things
speaking,
Sorry.
No, go.
I was going to say, one of the things I like about space adventure in general, like we mentioned Star Wars, but you can do like anything you want. Like there's no restrictions on what you could do. You can have laser pistols and you can have, whatever you want. And it doesn't have to be reasonable. Right? Like mil sci-fi, you've got to be able to present it in a reasonable fashion. But space adventure, look at art like Andromeda. Like the TV series that was a crazy series, or Farscape.
Mm-hmm.
Like those things are just even Stargate SG-1. Like those things are just fun, like entertaining.
And SG-1 is a good example of a space adventure that has military in it, but it's not military sci-fi.
Right, 100%. Yeah.
So, and I would say that a lot of Rachel's stuff, like the salvage stuff and that's all adventure, don't you think?
Does SG-1 count when most of it was in Canada?
But there are other planets that just happen to look
mountain.
like Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually just started. So it's funny. I actually just started watching Stargate SG-1 last week. I saw
for the first time.
For the first time, I watched. I saw Stargate was on Amazon Prime, and I watched that. And after I finished, I found Stargate SG-1, and I haven't finished the first episode yet, but I started the first episode just.
It's week. Far superior to the movie.
Yeah, the first season was on HBO before it went to Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
So there's like it's an adult show on HBO.
Right.
bigger
as
budget.
opposed to, well, I mean, as far as nudity and language, as opposed to when it went to sci-fi and became
That
PG-13.
explains the pilot episode. 'Cause that's really the only one that has that.
Yeah.
But
I didn't get that far yet.
You'll know what scene we're
Thanks
talking
for spoiling it, guys.
Well, now you want to be able to watch it since you know.
Yeah.
about. Josh immediately goes, finishes it.
We didn't say if it was male or female, so you can still be surprised.
Oh, good.
Or
good.
human. Or alien.
Or human.
Or
That's
alien. That's right.
Well, you got 4 people on the panel. You don't need me, and there he goes.
I'm gonna go watch it now. Bye, guys.
Yeah,
I'm watching it on my other screen
2021
right now.
Yeah, the year we all of a sudden started talking about alien peepees.
So
What
we're
about-
gonna get back around.
Yeah.
So what
Moving
are some
right
of your
along.
favorite tropes for space adventure stuff?
Ooh, what was that document I pulled up?
Galactic
There were
Empires.
some really great names.
Yeah.
Galactic Empires.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely
Yeah.
the big sweeping civilization. I mean, I think you definitely need to have some kind of like pew pew style weapon. Just like only using kinetic weapons isn't going to be a lot of fun. You need like your lasers or like plasma beams or something to make it fun.
Right, because like the science where you're like you shoot your missile, but you've got to do like Apollo 13, right? Where you've got to project where it's going to go in relation to the gravity and all that. I just want to see fighters go out of a space carrier and like strafe it like they would in Pearl Harbor. Like just like that it's not realistic, right? There's no way.
And this is why Josh is not on the space flight panel.
It's true. It's true. I don't look at all that. I'm like, I'll make all
What looks cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like,
Well, that's the
cool.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
it looks cool, right? And it's fun.
It's the
And
rule of cool.
I don't have to
Yeah.
sit.
Yeah.
I don't have to sit with a pen and a paper and figure out how much time it's going to take me from here to get there. I really enjoy like Space Empires, like you said, but then also just like fun. Like you don't have to think about it. You're just reading it because it's entertaining.
Yeah, because a lot of readers are willing to suspend their disbelief on that science and everything as long as you make it fun for them and semi-plausible, even
Right.
if it
Mhm.
absolutely could not happen in reality. I mean, it depends on your genre, but yeah.
Another of my favorites, as anybody who's read my stuff will know, is Lost Ancient Alien Civilizations.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say ancient astronauts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are not the
Ancient-
same thing.
Ancient astronaut theorists say.
Yeah, that's what I always loved about like Prometheus, which is a movie that I thought was good, but it really could have been great. But I
Yeah.
liked the philosophy behind it and where they could have gone with it. And that could have been beautiful.
I don't know if they're ever going to finish The Expanse, and I haven't finished reading the books, but the ideas and concepts that they figure out as they figure out what the protomolecule is and then figure out the travel system with the gates and all that stuff, that's what's interesting to me. Like I don't really like I want to figure out like where were those aliens, why did they die, like what happened with all them, how did they do all that stuff. That's the stuff that interests me. I probably should finish reading the books, maybe there's something in there, but I love the ancient alien trope. Like just uncovering some weird crazy thing is
Oh, yeah.
is fun.
Yeah. And I do
Yeah,
like the uncovering the ancient astronaut, the ancient human astronaut, because they've done that a lot too, where, you come across some sort of cryopod in books. I'm thinking of like the Jack Campbell series.
Yep.
Or
Velocity.
the one that by James P. Hogan. I cannot remember the name of the first book, but it starts out when they discover a human skeleton in a spacesuit on the moon, but it doesn't come from any of the human colonies there. It's like, and it's something like 100,000 years old.
Or like Sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Sphere, and in the movie, I wanted them to go deeper into that aspect of it because that was really cool to me.
In the last season. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the last season of Battlestar Galactica too, and finding the skeletons
True.
of themselves.
Inherit the Stars was the name. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, classic.
You know, the one thing I didn't like about the last season of Battlestar Galactica, he got like super spiritual / religious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you watch it the second time, like, and you know it's coming, you could kind of like whatever. But I loved the lore, like the original planet, the original colony, and all that stuff. Like, Earth was destroyed, and then it's just, you talk about what's the word? Playing. So, why am I drawing a blank? I can't remember, but it's like you're thinking they're actually talking about our Earth, but they're not. They're talking about another Earth.
Yep.
Bait and switch.
It's a bait and switch, but there's a word. That's not a word, it's a phrase. I don't know. I'll think about it in 5 minutes, and I'm just gonna blurt it out.
Almost like a New Eden kind of thing, where you think
subverting expectations because you expect it to be Earth.
My favorite phrase.
Yeah. Well, but in this case,
on the tip of my tongue.
But in this case, it's done properly, right? Like like other people just say they're subverting expectations just because they want to do something different, and you're like, that's dumb. That's a horrible idea. Like Star Wars. But I think they did it really good with that particular instance in BSG, where they're like, Earth is destroyed, or we're going to Earth, and they finally get there and it's destroyed, and you're like, what? And then they actually get to the other planet, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, until the last 15 minutes, that you're like, what?
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There is one I sent, for any of the watchers who are watching this panel, I sent the team a link to the TV Tropes website that has tropes in space, and one of them was a space adventure trope list. And this is my favorite of all of them. Negative Space Wedgie is the title.
So good.
Which is a strange, dangerous event in space. Okay, that we've seen that happen a lot. And that's a good trope.
Where does the negative come in?
I have
I don't know.
Idea. I just
I'm
like
definitely
the name.
Using that in a book.
Negative space wedgie.
What would sound better is inverted space wedgie, I think.
Yeah.
Because he was inverted.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. And Rick joins the space combat panel now to talk about space wedgies.
So we've talked about some of our favorite tropes. What about some of those things that just really make you cringe every time it comes up?
The green skin babe, the alien green skin babe type
but
theory.
Or in general, the aliens who just look like humans with ridges on their heads, like Star Trek aliens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're so anthropomorphized that you're like, you're not.
With no explanation for it.
Right.
Yeah, I like to use anthropomorphic aliens, but I always explain it that they're there because they're not actually, something that happened on their own.
Right. Like what's the seeding concept?
Panspermia.
Panspermia. Yeah.
But actually, series that I'm working on right now deals with the fact that when we go out and just into the stars, we find a lot of stuff that's a lot like Earth, sort of like, the movies, and all the scientists are like, yeah, there's no way this is natural. Although they won't commit to it because they don't want to get,
right,
called nuts, but they're like, oh yeah, this was engineered. There's no way that these things evolved to look so close to stuff on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I would love to see done, and it's a cringe thing, but I don't know how to do it correctly, is every alien civilization you meet is of one mind, right? They're all like, they don't fight with each other. They don't have monolithic. There you go. Like, we see on Earth, obviously there's thousands of different cultures. There's hundreds of countries.
Languages
are different. And then you meet the Klingons and they all speak the same language. They all wear the same clothes. They all follow the same kind of structure, but like plausibility, that probably wouldn't happen. Right?
Every planet is homogenized, and it's really, exactly.
Yeah. I would love to see the ability, like someone do a series where maybe that's not the focus, but it's like a point in the series where they're like, dealing with this faction over here, but they've also got to deal with this faction and just different things like that I think would be really cool to play with. in a series. It's just tough to do, right? Because then you have to make up.
I do some of that in mine.
Oh, do you? Nice. And how
That's
hard?
why she's the queen,
right? The queen of science. Well, I just think it's hard because like you create an alien and you create one culture, but if you separate them out and you have multiple cultures, it's 10 times the work to figure out, okay, what are these people like?
And not just that, but if you're looking at it through the eyes of, say, human explorers, then you have to build in the time to have them meet all these different, representatives of different cultures.
Yep.
Yeah. It's definitely easier to make them all the same and make their people either all evil or all good. But
and I would say that I would try to do like different looking aliens, but I did like specifically in my Terra Nova series, we had a race that looked like humans, except their skin was I think their skin was like gold or something like that, but they had like goat shaped eyes because Richard was all about we have to give them goat shaped eyes. And I had to look up and Google goat shaped eyes, and they're squares, right? They look weird.
They're squares.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those grazing animals that have the side eyes will have a horizontal iris.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And it was weird. It was one of the things we played with in the series because you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, this is this. The other aliens would look at them and go, oh yeah, that's them. That's the other race. And then they get closer and they look at the eyes and they're like, that's not right. There's something wrong with their eyes. So it was kind of fun to play with. Like if you've ever read like Peter F. Hamilton's aliens are crazy. They're nothing like there's a character called Morning Light Mountain, and he's this alien, but he controls like basically his entire species through telepathy, basically. And
so that's monolithic with an excuse,
right? But one of the things that's crazy is like there's no how do you say there's no way to compare like thought processes or like what like they capture a couple of humans and he like pulls off this dude's arm, but he doesn't understand that the dude's screaming in pain. He just hears him making noise, and he doesn't associate that with pain because he's never the character has never experienced that at all. So he's like testing on these creatures and like poking them and ripping off arms and stuff, and he has absolutely no idea what he's doing. And that was crazy. Like reading that, I was like, now that's a true alien-esque type experience.
Mm-hmm. Which I love because in books you can do that.
Yeah.
Movies and shows, it makes sense they can't do it because of the costs. Right. I mean, CGI makes it easier now, but obviously the first Star Wars and Star Treks and those, it was everyone had to look human because that was the actors you had to work with.
Yeah, so I think Star Wars did a bit better. I mean, they had a bigger budget, obviously, but they did a really good job, I thought, of just making multiple unique looking alien in the bar scene in Tatooine, where you see all the different aliens that are in there, and there are some. Yeah, now I got the song stuck in my head.
Thanks.
The one challenge there is, like Star Wars did a very good job. Superficially making them look different, but to in a book to do justice to not only the fact that they look different, but everything about them, a lot of books still tend to anthropomorphize because we have to be able to have some sort of a relatability touch point.
You have to understand their motivations
with the reader. Yeah. And in reality, if there is a reality and if there are aliens, they would be in many cases probably incomprehensible to us. And to do that, to be able to take that and craft that into a story really almost doesn't belong in the space adventure genre, I think, because it elevates it to too much of a...
It's mainstream sci-fi, really.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things too in written form is you can come up with a whole bunch of beautiful descriptions for it, but as a reader, you would read that description and then move on, and maybe you keep it with you as you're reading, but maybe you don't. And there's a lot of times where I read that I don't even conceptualize that this is an alien and they look different. I'm just looking at it as like, this is the character saying this.
Right. Yeah. And then, again, you'd have to, to write some sort of a completely different society, you'd have to carry that throughout the book.
Yeah.
And so much of the whole, I got to figure you out, it's kind of like, we see that in cultures here on our planet, where we can't really, our Western culture and say the Japanese culture and the whole art of the belly and communication is so different.
Yeah.
And if it's that different between two nations between humans, you extrapolate. It would be.
I've heard it said that the thought processes of someone who lived in ancient Rome would be far more alien to us than any of the aliens that we've seen in any TV show or movie, because they had a different culture and they thought of things different ways, and aliens would be even more far afield. I mean, like the average Roman citizen would have no concept of just the expectations we have as modern Westerners. They would accept that everything that happened was because the gods wanted to do it and their free will didn't exist, and they didn't have any initiative, and they were pretty much stuck in what they were was what they were, and a lot of things that we just can't comprehend. And aliens would be, that's the problem with realistic aliens, and why you're right, they probably don't belong in space adventure, is because it would take half the book just explaining how they thought.
Exactly.
Yeah,
or
like,
just
I
use some
love,
hand wavium and just.
Yeah, I
willing
love the
suspension of disbelief.
The bar scenes of having all of these different alien races come together, but I have to say that kind of falls under my cringy tropes, because it just doesn't make any sense that all of these individual races would come in and like all be able to breathe the same air in exactly the same way with that different anatomy. It just doesn't make any sense. So,
but it's cool.
But it is cool.
It's the cool factor. But I have to say that one of just the really little things that I always just sigh and roll my eyes when I see it is reversal polarity. And that just fixes whatever happens to be wrong. Reverse polarity. Oh my gosh, it's all better. Yeah, that one.
There's a whole slew of science stuff that I have to just kind of go, and.
So I did that.
The neutrinos have mutated.
I did that on purpose in one of my Terra Nova books. I did it on purpose, and I don't know if you guys ever seen. If you YouTube Rockwell automation, you'll get this. It's like probably a 5-minute. It's probably lower, but it's basically an engineer talking about all these things. And as far as I understand it, everything is made up. But it sounds 100% legit. But you don't.
I have seen that.
You know what I'm saying?
That.
And so what I did is I took that entire thing, I wrote everything that he said down in the thing, and then I broke up I broke it up into bits, and then I slide it into the dialogue, and the characters like,
evil.
The turbo encabulator's reverse polarity on the thing, and I did that through an entire scene, and I literally had one character going, "What in the hell is he saying?" No one knows what he's saying. I did it on purpose. It was hilarious, and people picked up on it.
I did the same thing on. I looked up the most out there jargony stuff that people would say in staff meetings for the military. The whole all that corporate-esque type of thing that they would, and I just put the whole spiel in the mouth of somebody. When everybody's just staring at him like, what?
Yeah, I put the reversal polarity in my comedic sci-fi troubled space novella, and just reverse the polarity. But no, why would I do anything? No, it'll work. Just do it. And of course it worked.
Increase the photon injectors to the proton matrix so that the reverse polarity switch will send the
you've got to love the.
That's some of the reason that space adventure is fun, because everybody knows it's all bullshit, right? Like you just watch it, and you're like, it doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't mean anything. Like just watch it because it's fun.
Yeah.
Or read it.
Or read it.
Yeah. So speaking of the cool factor, what are some of the cool technologies that you've seen used in space adventure, regardless of level of realism? Just what makes you excited when you see it?
Oh, who doesn't want a deflector shield? Come on.
Yeah. Which you kind of need for fast travel. You at least need some kind of radiation shields.
Anybody remembers GURPS? Remember the Gatling laser? I love the Gatling laser.
Gatling laser.
One,
Yeah,
That does sound fun.
It sounds awesome.
it's like a Vulcan, but it's a laser. You know?
So mine isn't technically space adventure because it's from the Avengers, but I put it into my space adventure because I love the tech. But nano suits, like his in game, he clicks that button and basically he's covered in the nanites that create his suit.
Yeah,
I like
Infinity
that.
War.
In Infinity War, yeah. And it's kind of like the Stargate thing with the helmets that do the thing and they shrink into nothing. I love that. Well, I guess it was in Guardians of the Galaxy too, where he's got the thing in the space.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff, like nanotech. That is really cool, and it comes out of nowhere. I mean, it's kind of Deus Ex Machina sometimes, but like for the most part, I love that kind of technology because it's different.
Yeah, I like portals if they're done right, like the Expanse portal to the gazillion different systems. That's pretty cool.
I like the computers implanted in your head that you can talk to.
Yeah.
Of
course, Elon Musk is like doing that now. So
Yeah.
True. Hey, I invented the term Neuralink, and he just changed it to an A.
Yeah, copyright infringement, man.
But you guys think it's crazy?
If you
Like
put it in Yellowstone, I'd be really mad.
So many things in Star Trek that were like so advanced and nobody would have thought possible are totally 100% reality right now. I mean, we're close to having a holodeck. I mean, we basically have a holodeck, right? Like you could get an Oculus Rift or whatever it's called, and you're in the holodeck, right? Like
can't interact with the matter though.
Do what?
You can't interact with the matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're waiting for haptic holograms.
Oh man. Yeah.
We're getting close to Lieutenant Data.
There was a Next Generation episode where Picard's yeoman brought him a stack of tablets to sign. Like it's paperwork. And I'm like, what? Even at the time in the 90s, I'm like, what the hell? So it's funny because in my first Valor book, I had a scene where there was a whole bunch of papers on this desk, and I had a joke that I really wanted to do, which was I thought we were going paperless because every military and every like law enforcement, a lot of agencies are like, we're always going paperless, and they never ever go paperless. So you get more paper, and I wanted to use that joke, and the publisher Steve, he read it and he was like, you can't use that joke. And I was like, why? He's like, because they're not going to have paper in 2600. Like they're not going to have it. They're doing all this other stuff. They've got this tech. They're not going to have paper. And I'm like, I'm going to have that joke. So basically I did what you're saying. Like I changed it all to pads. And I said, I thought we were going padless. I changed it from paperless to padless because I wanted the joke in there.
Nice. Yeah. I really like, instantaneous communications, whether it be like Ansible or Subspace or anything, because having a story delayed by light delay can get so like it's great when you're doing a certain type of story, but I think that the space adventure thing of being able to just like get from point A to point B super fast and be able to communicate across worlds is a fun one to explore.
Unless you want them to be cut off from communications, because that's more exciting.
Making them alone.
Yeah, I had to build in faults with my communication system so that they would. There are ways to make it so it doesn't work. So I can employ that when I need to.
I have certain systems that are connected by these wormholes, and you could connect instantaneously through those. But if you're off, like using the other drive to go somewhere that's not connected, then you're way out of communication. So you get the best of both.
So you get the best. I have the same. I have something similar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I don't have Yellowstone, so I'm safe.
Is it Wednesday?
And that is an inside joke. So,
sorry, guys.
We are all creators here. So what is the favorite spaceship that you personally have created in one of your series? And tell us a little about it and what books it can be found in.
My personal favorite was... I'm sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, you go ahead, Rick.
My personal favorite is one that I call the Dutchman, from the Flying Dutchman. And actually, he has painted on it, hand painted in Dutch Fligandra Halandren, I think it is. It means the Flying Dutchman. It's the original. But it's from a character who was like a side character in my Glory Boy book. And later on, he becomes like a smuggler / he's weapons smuggler. And he buys this ship from the war he'd fought in, like a surplus, and calls it the Flying Dutchman. And it's like really beat up, slapped together thing. But since he's a weapons smuggler, it's got all these high powered weapons in it.
But it looks like it's put together with spit and baling wire.
Yeah, and it first shows up in my book Birthright, and then unfortunately it's destroyed in the next book.
Oh, no. Yeah, my favorite is the Javelin from my Flight of the Javelin series with the Black Sheep book, because it was a fancy AI ship that was connected to its AI hive mind. We've talked about that trope. Mm-hmm. And but then it was destroyed by humans during a kind of very brief AI human war way back. And it slowly rebuilt itself, but it lost all of its memory store. So it rebuilt itself as something new with its own new personality and everything. And so a good chunk of the series is kind of based on this ship's rediscovering itself, or discovering itself for the first time, because it never really had a chance to be itself before. And so I really enjoyed that, of trying to look at technology and how it could evolve and do something and not be evil.
Yeah. I like the alive ship thing. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mine is the Valiant from my Terra Nova series. Because I have plans. Like everybody says, I'm gonna write this book. I have plans to do like a Firefly-esque series, but I basically was able to put together a crew over the course of the Terra Nova series, and it's got an alien in it, it's got a schizophrenic robot in it, and it's got like a pilot and a couple brutes with guns in it. You got everything you need to have like every cool thing on the ship, and I really enjoy that. Like that. I don't think any of my other books have a ship that is a staple through the series, but the Valiant is one of mine. And so hopefully at some point I'll be able to write a series based on the ship and the characters and what they do. But that's I think that's really the spaceship aspect of space adventure is. I like to have a real personal connection, not just with the ship, but to have a reoccurring, like the Firefly or like the Galactica or the Enterprise or something like that, where the ship becomes its own thing. It becomes a character.
Millennium Falcon.
The Millennium Vulcan. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like that. I like the connection with the tech.
As much as I love those scrappy, beat up, beloved ships, I don't have any in my current series. I totally nerded out on Wraith, which is the name of the Helios class ship that I invented. And it's basically what I did was I took something that kind of exists now in DevGru, which is the 160th SOAR, which is the Special Operations Aviation Regiment. And it's the Black Hawk, the super stealth Black Hawk, and just projected that, hundreds of years in the future.
The Night Stalkers.
The Night Stalkers, yeah. And so this Helios is that, and it's got all this stealth, and it's got this active fiber interior. I warned you, I really nerded out on it. So it's got this active fiber interior that can completely reform itself just by thought. So the crew can, because when you're going one way, down is one way, and when you're going that way, down is the other way. So the whole ship can, it's cantilevered and it's on a gantry arm, and it can just reform its interior.
That's cool.
So it can align itself vertically or horizontally, is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah. The walls can repattern themselves and everything. So.
Right. So I think
it's fun.
Yeah, I think mine would be the TSS Conquest, which is a specialty made, one of a kind ship, which is sort of like the big, we're going to use this tool to end the war ship. So it's not the largest in the fleet, but it has, what do I call it? There's a material called Aderon that can basically take a telekinetic energy charge to it. So it has a band around the ship that can serve as kind of a buffer, and then use this like weaponized telekinesis and just like pure energy weapon. So it's very unique. But my favorite part of the ship, and I have others in the TSS fleet that are like it, but the Conquest is just a step above, is the command center is at the very center of the ship and is a sphere, and the entire thing is wrapped in a super high resolution holograph, basically. So, and it's just a transparent middle floor bisecting it. So when you're in the middle of the command center, it's basically like you're just out in space and
That's
just
cool.
like floating out there. And that can pivot around and zoom, but it just gives a completely accurate position of where the ship is in space. So
that's
always
I
fun
like
to write.
that.
You know, that's actually a trope. That's another trope that I saw on that list, which is really, really cool. It's the cybernetic pilot kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit, I have that in mine where, you know, I have like a synthetic vision. Mine aren't AI, they're SI, they're synthetic intelligences.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the pilot links with that. And it's almost like, you know, you kind of submerge yourself and suddenly the ship disappears and you are in the black. And every sensor that the ship has, you know, it intuits just your gesture. So if you look to the left, it brings that sensor. So the human body is so.
Too.
It's
some of my books, they have like jacks implanted in their temples, and they plug it. They jack into the ship, and in one of them, when they fight, the ship is doing all the maneuvering and everything, and the person has to like visualize the fight as something more visceral. So they're like the main character is like visualizing that she's reaching out and punching the other ship, you know, or something.
Yeah. And I even wrote that you know, one of my pilots that watching a pilot fly is an interesting experience because they kind of tend to kind of dive and move and weave with the ship because it's just so much a part of who you are. Sorry, Josh.
No. I was just going to add the that kind of. I've done that with my rigs, or the mechs, if you want to call it, in my Tranquility series, where they climb into the saddle and there's a implant in the base of their spine that magnetically connects with the receiver inside the rig. And what it does is it activates a padded gel around their legs and basically locks their legs and hips into place, and then diverts the brainwave signals from the brain from the person's legs to the rig's legs. And so you think about walking and it's just a natural, you're walking, but you're not walking, the rig is walking.
Yeah.
I
really like the bioelectronic interface stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
I kind of do the same thing in a couple of them where they don't lock their legs in place, but they have some kind of some of them are, in some of the books, they're jacked in just like the pilots, and others they have like a neural halo that goes around their temples, but it takes their sense of balance and basically imparts it to the mech.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, reality is chasing science fiction. That's, you know, you're talking about, I no kidding. It's a huge problem for us writers. But Neuralink, you know, you saw the last, what was it, a year ago when they did their first demo of the pig with the electrodes in it, and it was doing the same thing you were describing, Josh. It was taking those mental impulses that the brain sent out, those messages that go to the muscles, and reading them.
Yep.
So we're not that far away.
A lot of the stuff that I wrote in my books, like when I was just starting out writing, like the late 80s, early 90s, you know, it's not science fiction anymore. It's just, that's the way it is.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So circling back to something we touched on earlier, it seems like a lot of ships can be a character unto themselves in a lot of these series. So, why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's like just like before. You know, you have a connection with the characters, which is something you need to have to enjoy the series and to keep watching it. But also you create something that can be lost. It's not the characters, right? So if the ship gets destroyed, it's like the Enterprise, right? Like the Enterprise gets destroyed in one of the movies.
5.
Right. Well, in the original Star Trek, they did blow up a couple of them, but in the Next Generation, they only lose one, and that is not only is a traumatic experience for the characters, but as a viewer, as a reader, you're like, I'm never going to experience that Enterprise again, and that emotional connection, I think, is really key to that ship being a part of the story.
Or in like the Star Wars movies, when the Millennium Falcon comes back in Episode 7, it's like a huge rush of nostalgia. You know?
Oh well, you know, Mandalorian. I mean, Din Djarin doesn't have a ship anymore. What are we gonna do?
Right.
It's like the thing that's literally keeping them separate from the void, and so it's like holding on to this special thing that I think it's very, you create that connection to it because it's the thing that's keeping them safe and getting them where they need to go. And so when that becomes damaged, then the characters by extension are also in peril.
Well, because it ups the ante, right? Because like you're worried about the characters, and if they lose the ship, then they'll die because they're in space. But you're also worried about the ship. It's not just the characters. You're worrying about both. So it compounds that. Holy crap! Something could happen here.
And it's a trope that's been around for quite a long time. I mean, think about Anne McCaffrey's The Ship Who Sang. You know, we're implanting minds into ship.
Yeah, I like Corey's comment about plenty of letters in the alphabet for the Enterprise.
Yeah, exactly.
But the ships, I mean,
and Moya,
Enterprise double Z.
Yeah, so the ships, I mean, they're just a part of the set. Sure, they're a setting piece, but it continues forward just like shows before there were space shows. You know, Cars, you know, you can watch Gone in 60 Seconds. That's more recent, but, you know, the Cars.
Knight Rider.
Yeah, Knight Rider, classic one. So a lot of times.
Dukes of Hazzard.
Airwolf.
Yeah.
Airwolf was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, vehicles often get promoted up to a character. They're named and treated almost as one. So it makes sense that with Space Adventure, it continues forward, even though it really is just a setting that moves.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, Moya was a great character. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen Farscape.
Oh.
I don't know if I've ever watched it. Well, I've never watched Stargate SG-1.
Oh, it's really a lot more
Stargate
fantasy.
Yeah, and it was also created by Hallmark Entertainment, so you know, I kind of
wait. What was
you were contractually obligated
to mention it? Contractually obligated to mention it.
The greatest show ever created.
Right.
Yeah. So fewer people die in it than in any one of your books.
Yeah. And they have a nice winter family reunion.
Yes.
And with a gazebo for some reason.
With a gazebo.
With a gazebo, right.
With Talon, definitely one of the best characters there. Yeah.
All right. So any final questions from the audience? Otherwise, I think we can begin wrapping here. So if each of you would like to go through and say where you can be found.
Okay. I guess I'll start. Rachel Lacus, you can find me at www.rachellacus.com. I'm also on Amazon and Wattpad.
Josh Hayes, joshhayeswriter.com is where you can find me. The website is updated-ish occasionally. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I'm not really on Twitter. I'm just there. Facebook's probably the easiest place to find me. And my books are all on Amazon and then keystrockmedium.com. You can get a hold of me there too.
And I'm at www.rickpartlow.com or facebook.com/Duty Honor Planet. And on Amazon, I am pretty much the only author named Rick Partlow, so I'll be easy to find.
And I'm at biogenesiswar.com. This is my website. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, all the social media things. And you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/LL Richmond. And most of my books are, well, all of my books are on Amazon, and some of the print books are on, you can go to your local bookstore and order them too. So.
And you can find me at amyduboff.com. My books are on Amazon, and most of them are in Kindle Unlimited. And you can find me on social at Amy Duboff, most places. So thank you so much for watching this panel. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you at other sessions, hopefully. Have a good afternoon.
See you.
Bye.
Live long and prosper.